Hello, Shalom. My name is Elly. I am one of the campaign organizers here for Uri Litzedek and Arizona Jews for Justice. I am joined today, and I'm so humbly happy to be joined with Elly Gotz, who is a Holocaust survivor, and it is a privilege and an honor to meet you, sir. We welcome you very, very
Nice
humbly. So you're from Lithuania, correct?
Lithuania.
Awesome. Him and his parents immigrated here from Norway, and then went back into Zimbabwe. They immigrated to Toronto, Canada, in 1964, and you were able to establish yourself there, right?
Yeah.
It's amazing. Just like myself, I was able to establish my life here. It's amazing to see how we can go from such horrible events in our lives and come back into establish families and have a beautiful life. So you're still over here at, I believe, you're still talking and giving out that message of progressive acceptance, correct?
Yes.
You go and give speeches?
Yes, I speak to 17,000 students. Last year I spoke.
Wow. Amazing. So Elly, tell me a little bit about your story. What did you go through? What did you experience?
I was 13 when the Germans invaded Lithuania and Russia. And we were occupied, and we were, after a while, put in a ghetto. Just Jews, 30,000 Jews were crammed into a small part of town. And then our life started in the ghetto, in miserable, very tight conditions, short of food. And eventually they killed most of the people. The Germans marched in, and immediately they announced that the Jews are not members of society, that they have to separate us. They don't want us to live there. They put us in a ghetto. And 3 years I stayed with my family in the ghetto. 3 long years. And I'll tell you one event. At the end of 3 years, there were only 8,000 of us left, when suddenly the Nazis announced we are liquidating the ghetto, liquidation. To us it meant they are going to kill the last 8,000 of us. And we decided we are not going to be shot up on the hill. We went into a basement, and my whole family, we dragged a cupboard in front of the door, so it shouldn't be obvious there was a door there. And we decided we are going to commit suicide if they find us. So my 3 uncles, my aunt, my parents and I, we went there, and my mother was a nurse. She prepared to commit suicide. She prepared syringes on a tray, and she said these syringes have a medicine in it which old people are given to accelerate the heart. But she is going to give us a very big injection, and that would cause us to have a heart attack and to die. And we sat in front of those syringes for 3 long days and nights. And then we heard 2 soldiers coming down, and they walked past our cupboard. They didn't recognize that there was a door behind, and they looked in the rest of the basement, and they were coming back and standing right there. And I decided I'm going first. I don't want to see my family die. It must be painful. So I stretched out my hand, and my mother was holding a syringe in her hand, ready to inject me if they start to move the cupboard. But they didn't. They walked out. One of them looked in the room opposite, and he found stacked furniture, and he said, "There's nobody here." So my mother put away the syringe, and we sat another few days. And then one of my uncles said, "The Germans must be gone by now. The Russian army must be here, because the front was right next to our city." So we climbed out of there, and we saw that there was a train standing there, and they were loading people on a train. They told us they were going to take us somewhere to work, but we didn't believe them. So we went to a train, and the train took us to Dachau, concentration camp Dachau. The women remained in another camp, and I stayed in Dachau another 10 months, and in that time we died of hunger and disease, and working 12-hour days. So that's a short story.
Wow. Wow, that took,
I weighed 70 pounds when I came out from Dachau. 70 pounds.
wow, that took a lot of me not to just break down right now. Incredibly, I could envision every single thing you said.
Tell us your story. What is your story?
So, at 4 years old, my mother and I crossed from Michoacan, Mexico, which is on the southern part of Mexico, into the United States. Just my mom and her, and just she tied me to the back of her back, and we walked the desert. We walked all the way from our trip to Michoacan into the border, and we walked. We followed a lot of people. The desert at that time was around 105, at most 110. We're running out of water, running out of food at that point. Imagine a 10-day walk is what we went through. I remember that a lot of our group disappeared. I assumed as a toddler, now thinking back, that they probably passed away. A lot of our group broke off, and then finally when we were just lost, because of the group that was showing us the way lost, we were apprehended by immigration. And at this point, my mom had no idea where we were. We had no food, no water. My mom was in desperation, because at this point I was probably going to end up dead if we were going to continue to walk. We were apprehended by ICE, put into a truck forcibly. My mom looked at the officer and said, "Officer, we ran out of water and we have no food. Can you please give my child any food or water that you have?" He looked over and laughed at my mom, and he threw a pack of saltine crackers at me and my mom. That is the driest food you could ever think of to somebody who's been in the desert for this long time. We were then placed in a holding cell with a whole bunch of other people. We were forced to sleep on the floor in cement, given the most very minute, highly chlorified water that existed, and we were forced to defecate and clean ourselves in front of a large group of people. We were treated as if we were animals, at the brink of almost dying of severe dehydration.
Why did your mother decide to leave where you lived to come to the States?
So, my mom decided to leave because of the immense amount of violence. I mean, a rapid amount of people were getting shot in the middle of the streets, beheadings. At that point, a lot of people said that they wanted to be the most violent cartels as possible. And my mom did not want her child to grow up in that environment, knowing that her child could be the next head that she would find up in her doorway. And that's what they do over there. You will wake up one morning as you're walking to the street, you will see bodies hanging, you will see heads on the floor.
Who were the attackers?
It's an fight within the cartel, who fight themselves, and unfortunately casualties are civilians. And my mom did not want me growing up around that. She said that she envisioned her son becoming something more than just another number in a graveyard. Because internally that's what it would have ended up happening. The people who get targeted first for extortions and kidnapping are unfortunately single women. And my mom fell right into that. So she said, I have no other choice but to risk everything I have to make sure that we have some slight hope in the United States. Because the United States has an amazing thing called the American dream, where if you work hard enough, just then you have the possibility of getting that dream and becoming what you want to become. Where in Mexico, in that part, that it would have never been a possibility ever for us. It would have died off with the rest of the bodies that you see there. So my mom decided to risk everything she ever owned, she ever had, and go. Her maternal instincts almost kicked in. I think just like your mother, she did not want you to suffer, so she had the syringes ready for you. My mom did not want me to see what she was seeing. So she said, we have to migrate. before it gets worse. We have to get out of here. And thank God both of us are here.
Yeah.
Both of us are here. I now actively work for my community. I mobilize all of my community in efforts to make sure that we grow. And I am one of those statistics that was able to flourish from being into the United States. I now know what the word American dream is in 2 languages, and being able to learn it, hopefully in Hebrew, it's going to be amazing. Being able to say yes, you can, if you just give the chance to be somebody, and to be looked at as a human being, is what was the most important thing to me, and it's what I think a lot of people should remember, that when you see a stranger or when you see somebody fleeing from something so bad, remember that they are human beings. Eli, I've been working very closely with the families who are being released randomly from immigration, and I had a little girl break down and cry in front of me because she received new shoes. She had not worn a pair of shoes that is new for about 40 days. She had no shoelaces because ICE takes that away from them. Her shoes were worn out. She had blisters on the bottom of her feet. She was shaking, but she was excited because she got to choose her very own light-up sneakers. And she was crying because for that 1 minute she got to choose her own pair of sneakers. And it reminded me that these are children, these are kids. She then turned around and started running in the grass because she was excited to see grass. And it reminds us that we are human, and these people coming in are people. They have a face, they have a name, and that little girl can grow up to be a doctor, to be a lawyer, to be an astronaut, to be a next revolutionary movement in our community, just because she was given a chance and looked upon as a human.
Yeah. What doesn't kill us makes us stronger.
Right. So Elly, what are some parallel things that you see with what's happening nowadays with what happened in the past?
You mentioned before to me that some people had their arms marked with a number.
Correct.
And that made me shiver a bit, because in the concentration camps very often they gave you a number on your arm. Where I lived in Dachau, they didn't do that. They gave us a number on our clothes, and that was our identifying number. We didn't have it on our arm, we had it on our clothes. But that association made me very uncomfortable to hear that story. Even though the people who do it perhaps do it because they can't talk to them and they perhaps need identification of some kind, but it wasn't a good parallel for me to hear it.
Correct.
It was very unpleasant.
I think it's a form of dehumanization that some structures of government practice, because it's very easier to push an agenda that you wish to if you dehumanize a person and look at them as a digit or as almost a criminal. It's easier for you to pass an agenda saying you're not welcome here, you do not belong here, so we don't have to treat you, are not a human, so we don't have to treat you like a human. And that's why I believe they use more numbers instead of names, because it's very hard to push names and faces of people, to push the rhetoric of hate, than it is to push a number and a digit. Because a number and a digit doesn't glare back at you with empathy. A number and a digit doesn't show you tears because they don't have food to eat. A number and a face can't show you dehydration.
Yeah. I've seen hunger and I've seen death. I've carried more dead bodies than I could remember. I have seen my friend. I woke him up one morning and he was dead. Tried to wake him. 7 o'clock, the whistle went. I looked in his pocket to check if he left a piece of bread, but he had eaten it, and I carried out his body. He weighed very little. So I've seen a lot of pain, a lot of hunger, pain. But I want to tell you that it also created in me a tremendous hate of Germans. And when I came out and I was in a hospital, I was only thinking about killing Germans one day. And after a while I gave it up. I said, you can't hate all people because some of them are doing that. That's the same what they did to us. All Jews are bad people. I gave up hate, and when I stopped hating, I started living. So it will be very important for your people here not to fall to the weakness of hate, because that blocks you from going forward in life. Only when I stopped hating did I start living. I remember that I want to be an engineer, I want to be a pilot, I want to do things since childhood. And I pursued my desires once I was free of hate. And I say quite honestly now that I don't hate anybody. I have not forgiven the people who have done bad things to me. They would have to ask me for forgiveness before I would consider it. But I don't hate all the people. And it's important when coming into a new country and being a refugee not to develop hate for the people who have mistreated you and generalizing it to the rest of the country. That is something you have to watch for.
I agree.
Even though you may be grateful that you are here, you hate the people who mistreated you. It's a natural feeling. But don't generalize it. Make sure that you are accepting of a new place.
Yeah. I seem to have the same feeling growing up as a child, and all throughout my education system I would see how my mom would get discriminated because she had a very heavy accent. I would see how a lot of people would, one time going into school, my mom brought the paperwork into the school district and she said, I want to enroll my son. And the staff member looked and she says, well, your son's not a citizen, we can't take him in. My mom broke down, and that hate started festering inside of me, and I started saying, well, maybe all the Americans are like this. Because I want to be American, but Americans don't want me to be American. And I started growing that hate. And then when I started doing social justice work, I would turn around and on my side there would be a group of Americans helping out. And each time I would see somebody helping out and denouncing hate and racism and bigotry, the rock that I had created of hate would slowly get chipped away and chipped away and chipped away as I started mobilizing the Jewish community, and I would see how they were extremely eager to help out my community and help out the rest of the people who needed it. I was freed from that burden of hate.
I'm very pleased to hear that.
Yes, because it's very easy to fall into that. It's very easy to hate than it is to love. Love takes time, takes practice, takes having an open mind, and it takes being a little vulnerable.
Well, hatred is being preached only by a small number of people in this country, it appears to me, and that is a great help, because Hitler was an amazing speaker. He convinced the whole nation to hate the Jews and to hate the Gypsies, the Roma, to consider Poles and Ukrainians Untermensch, lower forms of life. He was a great speaker. He convinced the whole nation, and that is what we have to watch out for. But Germany today is so different that it is possible for a nation to become different and better. So we must hope that this too will get better.
And I truly believe that the change is within myself, within yourself, within our family, within our people. We are the change. Everybody always hopes to see the change. Something will come in the future. Somebody will do something. But I believe we are that somebody. We are that change. We are the progressive movement that moves forward to eradicate any sort of hate and racist bias and any sort of bigotry that tries to bring us down. We are that movement. And that's what gives me hope. That's what keeps me alert. That's what keeps me happy. That's what keeps me going, is knowing that we are that movement that's creating that positivity in the world.
It's because of that kind of positivity that I spend time speaking to schools, even though I'm 90-year-old and sometimes it's not so easy to get up and go.
No.
I go and I speak. I spoke to 17,000 students last year because I want them to understand tolerance, not hating other people, accepting refugees and people in our country, in Canada. We also have a lot of people coming in, and there is some resistance to them simply because out of the normal human difficulty in accepting people who are different to themselves. And I urge them, I say, you don't have to love them, just be curious about them. Find out who they are. You will discover your common humanity. That is what we are trying to teach. And that is what you must work for. To help people understand the common humanity of people, even when they don't speak your language and they are dressed differently and they have a different religion and they come from a different place and they look different to you. Once you get close to them, you discover what it was. In Canada, for example, more than 20 years ago, our congregation helped people to come from Canada, from where did they come from? The boat people.
The boat people.
From where did they come from? The boat people. They were from Vietnam, the Vietnamese. And our congregation helped 20 or something families to settle down in our country. And they came without language, without possessions, without anything. We helped them settle down, and now, 20 years later, they are good people. They are part of citizens of our country, contributing. And now that we are helping to help some people to come from the Middle East, they said, we also want to contribute when they heard. So it was a wonderful feeling to see ex-refugees helping new refugees coming in.
Amazing.
So it is possible to do that and achieve that in a country, and we must work for that.
So with those lovely words, we leave everybody that watches this. Want to say thank you, gracias, and today is Friday, so Shabbat Shalom to everybody.
Shabbat Shalom.
To everybody watching this. Thank you so much, Elly.
Shabbat
It's been
Shalom.
a pleasure.
Best wishes.